Alright, welcome along to Friday Night's Team 33. I'm Raf Diallo. As always, you can get in touch with us on Twitter. That's at Team 33. We're also on Facebook, also on iTunes, Spotify, and now on YouTube as well. As you can see, my long locks. Jonathan's, I'm not sure what's on the shirt.
How are you going to describe me?
Stephen Bradley, not the Shamrock Rovers.
No, I can now tell.
Bearded as well. And also bespectacled. And Enda Coll, who has now become notorious on Twitter because of his player ratings.
Are we going to give him a French name? That's what I want to know.
In what sense?
To go to the whole L'Equipe.
L'Equipe, oui. And so we're talking about the Ireland.
Straight in there.
No, there's no messing. We're talking about the Ireland-Switzerland game, obviously. So it finished 1-1. We had live commentary on Off the Ball, but afterwards you were doing the player ratings, which I obviously subbed before it went out. Didn't make any changes to the number. You were getting a fair bit of abuse on Twitter. So let's just go through the player ratings first and why people were having a go.
Okay. Well, Ireland 1-1, late equaliser. So I'll run through what each player got. I won't give you the reasoning, but I'll give you the reasoning in a bit. So Darren Randolph got a 5, Coleman got a 4, Shane Duffy 5, Richard Keogh 4, Enda Stevens 3, Glenn Whelan 4, Conor Howrahan 4, Jeff Hendrick 5, James McLean 5, Robinson 4, David McGoldrick 7, and Alan Judge got a 5. Those are out of 10.
Yeah.
Not 5.
Some people
or 100, as quite a people might have said last
A couple of people got on to me and said I actually thought they were out of 5 until they got McGoldrick.
There was a bit of a spike from McGoldrick.
Did people really think that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players out of that start 11 got a top rating for a 1-1 draw against Switzerland? Honest to God.
But let's say that final goal hadn't gone in. I don't think people would have been having a go, given the overall performance.
I think people would have been calling for me to get sacked if they saw my ratings before that goal went in, because...
Well, you take McLean's, I'm sure that got a big jump because...
Well, McLean was on a 3 before...
And
his involvement, because
so I would have thought
he got a point for the assist, and then he got a point for the work he did. There was a one-on-one situation defensively that he did pretty well. And to be fair to McLean, it was a terrible performance, but those last 10 minutes, the reason Ireland got an equaliser was a lot of the work was down to him, because he was putting in a shift down the left flank, which he always does. James McLean always puts in a shift, but sometimes that's just not good enough. Like, sometimes you need to have a bit of footballing about you as well. And
is this the game that proves once and for all that Stevens and McLean can't play left back in the same game? Because they were both in the same position all game. Both is basically left wing back.
Yeah, well, McLean's position has never been his strength, and now he's had to... Like when we spoke about Gareth Bale, and not to compare the players, but they were similar in terms of it's pure raw pace. You get the ball, you run straight down, and then once the legs are kind of deteriorating a little bit, it's like, what do I do now? And you've seen his role kind of dwindle back from being that out and out old school left winger now to being kind of left wing back, left full, now playing in the kind of a 3 of a left, and then the formation changed from the first half. So there was if you look at it defensively, we were completely exposed on that plank in the first half so many times.
Well, Enda Stevens gave away the ball 10 times in the first half.
I think it was 25 altogether.
Yeah, but that wasn't all his fault. Like, a lot of the time he was isolated down that left flank when he got the ball, because McLean was looking for the ball out wide over the top. He was looking for it long, and then Hendrick was coming short, but he was coming short and then dummying the short run and going long again. So he left Enda Stevens on the ball, and he was left with no resort but to kick it away.
It was so annoying though, because we'd gone for the whole kind of let's block the middle. Like, you could throw a blanket over 5 or 6 of the Irish players there. They were all packed so close together. If you look at the stats as well, look at the average player positions, and they're almost dots on top of each other. But despite all that, we still end up humping the ball aimlessly down the channel. Like, we had the overload in midfield, and on twofold really with it, we got played through very easily. It was so easy just to go in and out of us. And on the flip side of that, from an attacking point of view, we didn't have the options in field for the foot. Watch how many you touched on it. Stevens there, how many times he had to give the ball away because of lack of options. Coleman was in the same scenario there. There was so many players inside. There was loads of numbers. There was room, but there was just no movement, no static, and it didn't really. I was confused, but what we were trying to achieve in the first half.
In terms of player ratings, who here has done either that or like a music reviews where you have to put like album review numbers or whatever on them? Obviously you have.
Done a few for Daily Cannon.
A few as well.
they're not enjoyable to do because you can't really sum up a player, because you're watching 11 players normally, or actually if you're doing player ratings for both teams, you're watching 22 plus players.
And it's done on the whistle as well.
Done on the whistle as well, yeah.
And particularly if you're at the game, there's a big difference between watching it on TV and being out there. And both kind of avenues have their own advantage, but you do miss out on a lot of things. Like, I'm sure, I suppose the only one we could look at, maybe Duff, the centre halves, maybe might get bumped a little bit.
Yeah, well, the thing about match reports now is that the landscape of journalism, especially sports journalism, has changed so much now that, like, player ratings are so benign, and I don't know why people bother, but it's like
people click on them.
Yeah, people click on them, and that's why people are still doing them. Player ratings are a side thing when it comes to newspapers, and rightly so, because they are benign, and you're expecting someone who's supposed to be writing a report on the match to also rate the players out of 10, which is, like, there's no algorithm for this.
No.
There's no, like, you're giving your opinion on how you thought those players played while also typing up an 800-word match report.
That has to be
in on the whistle, and now you have to also do tweets, also do Instagram stories. Like, last night I actually had a lot of time to do this because I wasn't doing the report, but at the same time I was doing this. I'll just explain my method through it, because Jonathan Northcroft wrote a book after the World Cup and kind of explained his method behind it, and I loosely based mine around his as well. He starts his on 6, I start mine on 5, so every player starts on a base level of 5. So you're talking, there's different ways of measuring it. So defenders aren't measured the same way as forwards or midfielders are measured. So Darren Randolph, for example, he's a 5, started on a 5, good footwork, so he got plus a mark, conceded a goal, minus a mark, 5, done. That's why he's on a 5. Seamus Coleman gave away the ball a couple of times and conceded a goal. He got minus a point, 4. Shane Duffy is probably the only one that I miscalculated, because I didn't realise at the time that I was publishing it that he got man of the match, so he actually would have been bumped up to a 6 for that alone. So he should really be a 6. Richard Keogh, same reason as Coleman. Enda Stevens gave away the ball too much and conceded a goal. Like, he was Ireland's worst defender, so he got a 3. And then you move up the ranks. Glenn Whelan, misplaced passes, lost the ball a couple of times, did well when he rattled the crossbar, but apart from that it was a forgettable performance. So why does he deserve any more than a 5? But he got a 4 because of the way he was giving away the ball.
I want to know really is, does he get an extra point for the Fernandinho tackle in the first half?
Like,
those are the things that fans will look into, because they'll be very emotionally invested in it.
Exactly. Like,
3. Like, it's not just 3, it's 3 question mark exclamation point. Like, it makes it sound like.
And they're looking at it from a fan perspective as well, and they're expecting us to do that as well. Like, the reason journalists are there is not to look at it from a fan's perspective. We're to look at it as a cold, objective viewer, and that's exactly what I was doing. And it wasn't a good Irish performance. I don't care whether we got the result. It was a great result. It's a good. It's not a great result. It's a good result, because we still have to go to Switzerland and get a result. We still have to host Denmark and get a result, and hope that Georgia do something for us. And that's only to qualify.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do when we get there? Like, nothing has changed under Mick McCarthy, and I'm not going to pretend that it has, just because we got a last minute or a last gasp goal and it was dramatic and Aviva was pumping, and the fans were involved in it. They loved it. I'm not going to rate the players higher because of that, because they didn't play good enough.
No, is the bar still, though, just get us in the party? We don't care what we do there. Just, we've got 3 games in the Aviva let's make sure we're one of the teams that are there. We don't care if we get beat 3 times again. We're going to be locked there anyway. We're not going to remember the games.
We've said that from the start. That's Mick McCarthy's job. It's just to get there.
That's the FAI's whole plan, and that's why the succession plan was done that way. It's because they wanted the guarantee, get us here playing games on home soil, and then let's think about the future with Stephen Kenny.
Stephen Kenny came out with his 3rd game and he said, right lads, here's our game plan. We'd all be looking at it and going, really? 10 minutes of pressing and then just a step back and then another step back and then another step back, and just invite a Swiss team that wanted to pass the ball around you. We saw how when Howard and Henrik were pressing Xhaka for the first 10 minutes of each half, they couldn't do anything. They were making mistakes. They were continuing giving the ball back to Sommer, who's not very good with his feet anyway, and none of them were creating chances. You know, McLean, if he had any right foot, would have scored in the first 10 minutes and they would have got more than a 5. But because he doesn't, he tried to come back on his left and missed. When Ireland pushed forward, they looked threatening. When they didn't, they looked really bad. And there's that common ground that Ireland have to find soon, that where they can have the not the courage, but just the incentive to go, right, instead of playing for 10 minutes, 15, 20, try to get an early goal and build on it. Instead of hoping to score in 10 minutes and going, right, 1-0, that'll do, and then fall back. It's just old habits that they're falling into again.
I think it's the same underlying factor that we continue to not play until we need to.
Yeah, that's the biggest
Ireland
frustration.
didn't press any. They looked like they were sitting back for a 0-0 draw, and that would have been fine. 0-0 draw would have been the same as a 1-1 draw, but we didn't start playing football until the last 10 minutes when we conceded, and we showed that we could, when we pressed the issue, Switzerland struggled.
Yeah.
So why then are we waiting, sitting back at home, knowing that a result? I understand, the Swiss have dangerous players, and if we press the issue too early, then they could have broken us through. But at the same time, like you were saying, when we pressed the issue against them, we looked like scoring.
Yeah.
Their keeper looked like giving away the ball. Yeah. We were actually putting them under pressure, and you know what? Like, Mick McCarthy can talk a good game, but at the same time, it's the same thing, exact same thing that was happening.
What is the difference
Martin
between this and you took the words out of my mouth there, and on Martin O'Neill performance? I can get the whole short term. His plan is just do the bare minimum. I can kind of get that, and I have to say it was the first match I've been to in quite a while where I hadn't been working on it, but I found myself thinking completely different than what the fans were. Everyone was jumping up and down, going crazy afterwards, singing, and I'm looking back, God, this was a terrible performance. We're going no place. This is the same over again. We might qualify with a bit of luck, but if we play a decent team, we're going to get absolutely hockeyed again. It's going to be like the last Euros all over again. Like, where is the plan? Where is the step forward? Where's our system? We looked, and I think people got carried away with that late equaliser. People saying we were organised and stuff like that. No, we weren't. We got caught. We got spun around in a couple of corners where there were a couple of one-on-ones. We got caught with throws in the halfway line where they completely spin us. We were all over the place.
Bolo had a free chance.
But I
10
think
yards out.
perceptions change because we're the ones equalising, whereas if it's the other way around where we score first in both games, and I'm talking about the Denmark game as well, and then the other team kind of come back at us, as has happened a lot back in the Martin O'Neill era, where we try and hold on to a lead and it kind of disappear. I think it just does skew the perception.
Yeah, it definitely does, and you can't expect fans to act otherwise, because it went from being dejected to being ecstatic in the space of 5 minutes. So everyone's obviously going to be buzzed after it, and you can't expect them to not to be. But at the same time, it's actually a good thing that Mick McCarthy is a short-term plan, because
that'll be
it has so much similarity to Martin O'Neill that it's quite scary at times. Because if you look back at Martin O'Neill's the start of that reign, we started off with good results.
Yep.
He got us to the Euros and everything was fine, but eventually that runs its course, and it's not sustainable enough. So it's a good thing that Mick is there. You know what? We'll probably get there. Like, we may not get there the normal way through the Euros.
No, but the Nation League.
The Nation League, it looks like we're probably going to get to the Euros.
Yeah.
So in that case, he's done his job, and that's fine, and it's fine for the short term. And the FAI is in such a mess now that you need some sort of stability. But eventually, Stephen Kenny is the man that's going to bring Ireland forward, and until then, I'm not expecting to give any other Irish players over a 7.
Yeah, but it's not only Stephen coming in; it's the whole new players and the whole new breath of fresh air that's going to build into the quad. You look around, even like McGoldrick got your top rating there last night. I'm correct me. Yeah,
McGoldrick for me.
Well, he's 32. Like,
exactly.
He's not going to be around.
It's actually really, really disappointing that he's so old, because he actually looks like the best Irish striker we've had. I'd argue to say before Robbie Keane's time, because
not the
Shane Long hasn't been anything fantastic in an Irish shirt. Like, Jonathan Walter's quite good, but he was pushed out to the wing very often. Like, McGoldrick looks quality. Every time he gets the ball, he holds the ball up well, he runs the channels well. He's dangerous. His decision making in the final third.
Prolific, that's the only thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same old story, Ireland. Good players to hold up the ball and play nice passes, keep the ball, whatever. But then when he gets into the box, that's when you have issues. So you're hoping that Troy Parrott is the man that's going to be.
It's a lot of pressure on a young kid.
Well, he's not that young.
No, he's 20.
17, isn't he?
Like, he's older than that, isn't he?
By the time he's in the Irish squad under Stephen Kenny, then you're hoping that he's going to be a starting Premier League player of some sort. Maybe not at Tottenham.
Won't be at Spurs.
Maybe not at Tottenham, but at somebody.
He's in their Champions League group.
Yeah.
They're 20
or at least he's getting.
He's Harry Kane's back.
Or at least you expect him to get some sort of appearances off the bench.
Yeah.
Kind of like Calvert-Lewin started off at Everton. Like, that's how I see Troy Parrott eventually ended up at Tottenham if he doesn't move from Tottenham before that. And Stephen Kenny will actually, I don't know if either of you are going to Tala tonight, we'll get to see what Troy Parrott's all about in an Irish shirt, because he's going to be starting for them tonight.
Compare the difference to the excitement looking forward to the under-21s without going too much compared to what you knew you were going to expect last night. They're chalk and cheese. Like, I'm genuinely excited looking forward to this under-21 squad. It's a breath of fresh air. You know what you're going to get with the first team set up, and until we get that in big games, that's really, and we are very much at that stopcock, and I am conscious of that. But I left the game last night extremely frustrated. Like, why did we wait to the end we'd settle for a draw? Why did we wait to the end before we start playing again? We had McGoldrick, you look at the way he plays for Sheffield United, holding the ball up and runners going. We had so many players in midfield that we could have done a little bit more of that. To Switzerland, technically, are a very good squad, but you can see all's not well there. Their mindset doesn't seem right with their... Like, can you imagine if Shaqiri was playing there last night?
Switzerland weren't all that bothered last night either. No. Because you could see in the first 50-odd minutes...
But there was a little bit of pressure.
They weren't pressing the issue. It seemed to me like they were happy enough to come here and get a draw.
They were like a guys
regardless of what they're
playing a game of five-a-side. You know, we'll turn it on. The good lad in five-a-side. We'll turn it on. We'll play a little bit, and that was it. And they completely stopped after they scored. If they hadn't scored, like, they had enough chances to get 2 or 3 and really kill the game off, but they didn't. They sat back, and then a little bit of a half flurry at the end. But
you can understand Ireland, kind of, playing for the draw at home against Switzerland. You can understand that a little bit, but there was no difference for me in that Ireland performance to what the Irish players went out and did against Gibraltar in the Aviva a month ago.
You can't see.
It was the same setup. They played as much as they needed to play.
Well, that's the thing, really. We're not really seeing... There's been a couple of games now, and I think the league table is distorted given the fact that who we've played and who the other teams haven't. But you look at our results, they're just about doing enough against the smaller teams, and then the couple of big draws, fair enough. But are we seeing a level of progression with our performance under Mick McCarthy?
No, but again, he's not there to do that.
But even still, you'd expect a small bit of improvement. It's a couple of more times he's getting the team together.
I think the only difference I've seen in this Mick McCarthy side to the Martin O'Neill side is that every time the ball goes back to Randolph, he's not hoofing it.
Yeah,
like they are playing the ball out of the back a little bit more, but at the end of the day, they're still playing 3 passes around the back and then kicking it long. It's still the same end game, but you're getting a few passes in there beforehand. But
that was my biggest frustration with McGoldrick last night, is that he reminds me so much of Giroud, who he'll come short for the ball, hold it up, knock it off to the winger, and then the winger will bomb past his man, put the cross in, and McGoldrick still 10 yards behind the box because he hasn't caught up yet. It's my one frustration, because any time McGoldrick was in the box and Ireland were putting balls in, he was very effective, as we saw with the goal. Even the build-up to the goal, when he just stood there and took up Akaji's attention, he was really good. He's really good at holding off his man. It's just because Howard and Henrik were so preoccupied with just staying in front of Glenn Whelan, McGoldrick had to come 30 yards back just to get the ball. And whilst Ireland are trying to play from the back, when everyone is continually coming back to just try and get the ball themselves, you end up with Enda Stevens just having to go, there's no one. What do I do now? Okay.
What I really couldn't understand was that particularly we seem to have and particularly when we changed the formation halfway through the first half, where we kind of almost went 2 up top, and there was a kind of an aggressive push. It wasn't a full court squeeze, but the 2 strikers pushed on a good bit. If you're playing a pressing game, surely Shane Long has to be involved in that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Is his race run?
Like if you're looking at it from a cold-blooded perspective, what has Shane Long shown in the last 2 years under an Ireland shirt and at club level?
Would he be an option to bring on at the bench?
Has he scored 3 goals in the last Premier League season?
Yeah, I know, but I'm not talking about necessarily his box play. But it's if you are playing that style of running where you're getting the ball and trying to turn the defenders, Shane Long, while he isn't a prolific scorer, he is decent at running the channels and occupying defenders. If we are, my point, I'm not sure would I have started him, but if you're playing that game plan, you have to pick players that are the best at that particular style of play.
I still think I would give someone like Ronan Curtis a chance, though. If you're talking about like Ronan Curtis is a fast, aggressive striker who has a record of scoring over the last couple of years. Shane Long doesn't.
No.
Like, we need to get past that. Like, I know I personally, like, Shane Long has done quite a bit for Ireland in the terms, he did the Germany goal, all that there, fantastic stuff. But at the same time,
that's 5 years.
If you're being as cold-blooded as to leave League of Ireland players out because they're not at a good enough standard. You have to be cold enough to say, you know what, Shane Long, you haven't scored more than 5 goals in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
you're not good enough for Ireland.
Watch Southampton as well. They will pick him for the type of games where they're going to press like that and get, like, he's not going to score that often, but my point is, if you are playing that style of football, he is quite effective.
But why not go for a striker who's good at that style of football and can score goals?
Okay, well, who do we have there?
Ronan Curtis.
Yeah, Sean Maguire.
Sean Maguire's been unlucky with injuries.
Yeah, quite a number of injuries there. But like Robinson couldn't really get into the game in the first half, and he was kind of playing that kind of out.
He was injured too.
Well, out in the 3 and then try and push up. But like you could put it this way: you could have seen Shane Long being effective there last night in that type of.
I can't though. Yeah. That's the thing. I genuinely can't, and I've nothing against Shane Long, but I don't think that he would have been effective in that game. Because he hasn't been effective in any Irish game of recent past. He hasn't been effective since the Euros. And that's a long time ago.
I just think it would have been an option last night. I think we could have exploited, if we are going, like, I don't agree, I don't personally like that style, but we ended up morphed into it. If you are, it's horses for courses, unfortunately.
He would have been a better pick off the bench than Alan Judge.
I quite like Alan Judge.
He's got a little bit of flair to him, which not a lot of our other midfielders have.
If you're playing that role to go, right, Robinson hasn't been effective, we need to, chase down Rodriguez, because Rodriguez has been awful this game. We're not going anywhere Mbappe because he was really good. Just there, like he said, stay in the inside right channel and just run for 20 minutes. And just, occupy your man and give Coleman at least a free run down the right wing and get balls into the box. At least play to a plan, but very much as the game went on, it was like, right, what do we do? Well, Robinson's not playing well, but you go on, Judge. What do I do? Like, he was playing centre forward the last 15 minutes once we went down. And that's, it's a very much, panic stations when you should have been planning to go 1-0 up. It was just, horses for courses, as Jonathan says, but it's just, there didn't seem to any be cohesive planning or, right, we're going to do this.
Yeah, I think they were stumped really with the Switzerland setup. They didn't think they would play 2 up front. And then I think we all expected them to go 3 at the back, but it was the 2 up front that really caught them, and then we ended up changing it, halfway through the first half, and then changing it again, and then going gung-ho at the end. Although you have to admire the flexibility and the willingness, because unfortunately in Irish manners gone by we've been very, very tactically stubble and haven't really moved from that. We did at least try to acknowledge it, but at the same time they caused us large problems by simple enough basic stuff. So
the goal, the goal is a prime example of that. But everyone keeps talking to me and saying how good a goal it was. Watch back the goal.
It's a third-man run.
It's 2-1-2s between our midfield. If you watch Jeff Hendrick, he fails to follow his man twice. Yeah. He gets sucked in, and Shane Duffy gets sucked in for the second 1-2. And that's what happened. That's how simple it is. Football's a simple game if people make mistakes.
And they had been trying that, and they'd been doing similar little movements throughout the game, and we never adopted once. Our team was set up to kind of fight against that and be tight and be compact and have all the players in the middle, but yet they were still able to ping around it. That's
the frustrating thing for us. We can't do that simple stuff.
Yeah, if it was
particularly on midfield.
Fair enough, it's a nice goal to look at.
But coaches are going to tear their heads out looking back.
It was a lovely goal to watch. But if you look at, it's kind of like what you were saying about our midfielders being too close to each other. If you actually look back at that goal, all 3 of our midfielders, in Hendrick, Hourahan and Whelan, are in a little triangle, while Shearer runs through, and Hendrick sees him running, he follows him until the edge of the box and lets him run into the box. He just stops.
You can't do that. He left him for each other. He said, well, the other lad will cover him. Oh, yeah, the other lad will cover him.
Slowly getting away.
It's a classic example, and it's unfortunately, it's kind of... the midfield really sums it up with Hendrick in that example, and I hate really picking on him, but
he's not defensive that scenario either,
but he's played 4 minutes for Burnley this season.
To be fair, I actually thought he was quite good in the first half.
He was very good at that press. 2 seasons ago.
And you're starting to see a little bit more of the Hendrick that everyone keeps talking about, the Euros. Yeah. The one, when he's getting forward, he's a good player when he gets forward and gets onto the ball.
I went to the press conference where he was talking about it, and he is aware that everyone is questioning him since Euro 2016 because he hasn't really he kind of disappears a lot in games.
He does.
But his thing was he's not being played in the right position by managers, which maybe is fair enough because he's been moved around a fair bit. Yeah.
But the James McLean chance came from Hendrick pressing the issue, having nice feet work, and then just passing, just passing it to McLean. Like when he does those simple things, he's actually quite a good midfielder. I felt sorry for Conor Hourahan last night because he was playing very defensive for his brand. Like he is a box-to-box midfielder anyway, but he was playing more or less as the de facto centre defensive midfielder beside Whelan, and he was just forgettable, would be the word. Like he didn't get on the ball enough. It wasn't his fault that he didn't get on the ball enough. It was just the ball was just going over his head. There's nothing he can do.
They lined up as 4-1-2. And then after 15 minutes, after pressing, they went, right, okay, let's keep it back for 10 minutes, and then went 4-2-1. And just like you said, it put Howard 10 yards away from where he should be.
It's like when James McCarthy, when he used to sit beside Whelan, and he kind of felt redundant there, whereas he could actually be the defensive midfielder on his own, or Whelan, one or the other. Play one, not two. Play one,
or play a better defensive midfielder. If you're going to commit to two, then play. If you have to sacrifice Robinson and play Hendrick right mid, because Robinson spent all game cutting inside, just tell Hendrick do the same thing. Just cut him in 10 yards. Don't worry, our right back's a monster. And if he's not able to do it, well, we got Matt Doherty behind him. He can do the same thing. We don't mind you cutting inside. It's like I said, little ideas like that maybe a manager like Kenny will have time to experiment with. But at this current juncture, with Ireland needing results, maybe McCarthy's in the position to go, I can't risk it. Because if I lose that game and I don't get a good result against Denmark, we're gone. And yes, we might get a decent draw in the Nations League, but if Denmark, if either Denmark or Switzerland beat each other in the next game, then Ireland would probably only need a good draw against Denmark to get through in second.
Yeah.
So the group could work itself out in Ireland's favour anyway, thanks to a result like that, not thanks to a performance like that.
I thought it was quite interesting what McCarthy was saying after the game, that it was like a return to the good old days, and I didn't know if he meant that in the way that the team of players are underperforming for their quality
and still getting a result.
Yeah, and still managing to pull out a result that we probably should be getting anyway.
Put them under pressure and all that, but the thing that would, without being too negative, is the thing that would fear me was if we don't get that Switzerland-Denmark draw and we are going down to get a victory, that it seems a very, very distant journey, considering like the teams not being disrespectful.
If Denmark beat Switzerland, then Ireland have to get a result in Switzerland because it'll go on head to head.
If it's a draw, permutations in the morning.
Yeah, if it's a draw, then Ireland are probably screwed because Denmark and Switzerland have already drawn 3-3, and it'll go between goal difference between the three. If Switzerland get a win in Denmark, then it's basically a two-leg playoff between Ireland and Denmark, and Ireland have an away goal.
Yeah. Ireland need Georgia. Ireland need Georgia to get a result.
We needed a Scotland result off Georgia.
But Ireland have to go to Georgia as well, so we want them to be good once. We want them to be good, go out in the lash, and then forget about the next game.
That's why I think I said it. I'm not sure if I said it on Team 33 at the time, but everyone was looking at that result, the 3-3 between Switzerland and Denmark at the time, saying, geez, that's a great result for Ireland. I was like, no, that's a terrible result for Ireland. Because it was always going to come back to the fact that Ireland are going to have to get a result against one of those two teams, and if they're not going to do that,
if we have to go, if the permutations work out and we have to go to Georgia to get a win, are you confident of the way we're set up?
Well, we have to beat Georgia anyway.
Trying to get that win out of Georgia is a scary prospect.
I'd be confident enough in Ireland getting a win against Georgia.
If they can't do that, they don't deserve to come.
The issue is
major culture shock and team perception. Really,
we might be confident coming into the Denmark game, thinking, you know what, we've Denmark at home, might have a chance here. Might,
under pressure.
Do you know what we might do? We might open up the midfield and let Eriksson run through the middle again. That worked out well last time.
Luckily, Denmark won't be feeling any confidence at all because they've got the mighty Gibraltar at home 4 days before the play. And again, they won't be full of goals or anything at all.
That's the thing. Like 2-0 and 1-0 against Gibraltar.
Yeah, and
Denmark are going to beat Gibraltar 6-7-0.
They got 6 last night.
Yeah, well, the only thing we can do before we go to the break is just acknowledge that it will be hard either way, and always is, and we always make it hard for ourselves. But actually last night at half-time, David Forde, the former Ireland goalkeeper and a Galwegian like Jonathan Higgins, he was presented to the crowd, and last Friday myself and Jonathan went to chat to him, and you can hear that after the break. Alright, Raf Diallo here for Off the Ball, and Team 33 as well. Jonathan Higgins, we've brought a Galway man here, and in between we've made this very Connacht-centric, so we've Leitrim, Galway. David Forde, former Ireland goalkeeper, how are you?
Good afternoon, gents, how are you?
Good. So you've retired recently, and I was reading the statement, and you put a lot of kind of work into, I suppose, the wording of it, and a few kind of things jumped out, and one of them was stillness has become a teammate. It's a nice bit of wording. Why did you kind of go for that?
Yeah, at the time, a lot of people were asking me, what were my future plans, now that I've come into me twilight years and getting on and stuff so I I was going to sail off into the sunset, you know, but I spoke to my friend. He's a creative designer and producer and stuff, and he just felt that, you know, that we could produce something that would be representative of my career, you know. And I just felt that when a lot of people were asking me about my career and everything else, that I had such an amazing time. Even though I was in England for so long, Ireland was always in my heart, and I just wanted to catch something that was Irish and Celtic, and that real essence of what it is to be Irish, and to show a part of myself that, you know, as a footballer we have a certain level of teamwork, and we're in teams and stuff, and we get caught up in that dynamic and that process and stuff, and oftentimes we lose our sense of individuality. So for me, it was about me exploring another dimension of myself, and then to produce you know, some poetry and a bowron in there, and just some of the scenery around Ireland was such a humbling experience, you know. From what we actually wanted to do was initially just to get it out for, you know, family and friends and a few people to see it, but I was absolutely blown away by the reception received from it. It was a phenomenal reception, just the well-wishers and the best wishes, and something that was blind to me as well for so many years and stuff, like, you know. So I must say thank you to everyone out there that watched it, and that's given me the support, the encouragement and the love down through the years, and it has really, you know, blown over, you know, opened up my heart in terms of my retirement and what football has meant for me.
Yeah, the idea of stillness as well, is that tied into the meditation that you've practiced as well? I think it's a japa meditation.
Yeah, I've practiced various different types of meditation for years now. I've explored many different practices, many different techniques, whether it's a sound-based or whether it's done through breathing techniques, etc., etc. You know, just recently I've just returned from Arizona and spent some time up in the reservations in Arizona. I've had many trips to the Himalayas and exploring the ancient knowledges and wisdoms of the Himalayas, and, you know, also spent some time recently with a Bolivian shaman and stuff, like, you know. So I've been just exploring parts of myself that football has allowed me to do that, but there was always that part of myself that I wanted to explore in the deeper realms and deeper dimensions of myself and stuff. So once I became still in myself and I started to uncover my nature and my true self, those feelings and those emotions, and not only identifying myself as a footballer, I felt that there was more to me and more that I could actually achieve and more that I could do. So that's where my journey began.
Yeah, was it the Navajo reservation by any chance? Because I was just there in July.
No way. Yeah. We went to the Navajos. Yeah, they had the Star Wars cultural museum there where it all began. We spent 3 nights up in the Hopi Cultural Centre as well. Yeah. So between the Hopis, the Apaches and the Navajos, and just taking in their culture, their traditions. You know, it was a phenomenal experience. You know, such a huge experience, and you know, it was something that I've always wanted to do since I was a young boy. Since I always wanted to be that little cowboy in Indian. You know, I was always one for the Indians.
Yeah, it's very scenic, and as Galway would be, as Jonathan would know as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's the one thing I have to say as a fan initially growing up in Galway, we grew up in an age where I suppose it was primarily the Jack Charlton era, where there wasn't really much of a representation on the Irish team from a local player. Like, you gave so much hope and so much encouragement, and I know the buzz was unbelievable. Did that kind of, and we saw that reflected in, you know, especially with that video. Is that something you're proud of? You kind of given that avenue, that platform, really?
Absolutely. I'm just in the process of finishing off writing my book, and, you know, from that, it's such a cathartic, deep, reflective practice that when I started to go through the layers of myself and my youth and going through my journey, growing up in Galway, growing up in the west of Ireland, that sense of rugged wildness and really embracing and embellishing my nature and who I was, and a proud Irishman. You know, even when I think about it now, it even just gives shivers up my spine and stuff. And
I can see how emotional you were now already.
And you know, when I started to delve back into that and where my love for football actually came, it was actually those Jack Charlton era, you know, from 88 onwards. But really, Italy 90 was absolutely special. You know, Packy Bonner, an absolute hero of mine, making that penalty save. David O'Leary smashing that one into the top corner. missed penalty. There was just so much excitement. There was so much euphoria. The country, looking back at it then, we had so little as a family and as a nation and stuff, and it just brought so much sense of pride and such respect back to the country. And you know, Jack Charlton and that era and the players of that time, like, you know, your Packy Bonners, your John Aldridges, you know, there's so many players there that you could just Ray Houghton, you know, just absolute legends.
Yeah, and we look back at your career, you know, starting off from the Dyke Roads and, you know, your first big men's football, we call it. You went, I suppose, the scenic route around, very picturesque, and I think, again, it's another wonderful, you know, demonstration of your video retirement video, where it shows your journey, really. You know, you started off there, you ended up going to the United Kingdom and coming back playing in the League of Ireland. We've seen a lot of players now. Well, I suppose Jack Byrne springs to life, most important, or kind of most highlighted at the moment, that's done that journey and given the platform. Is that a journey that you think players should be encouraged? Obviously, we've seen our own two goalie colleagues, Greg Cunningham and Aaron Connolly, now making the breakthrough, but that League of Ireland step up, do you think that's a route that many more players should go?
1,000,000%. One thing my journey has taught me, and especially now stepping into these realms of coaching, mentoring and personal development, was that sense of responsibility, understanding that we always have a choice. You know, it's like what you're saying, it was a scenic route, it was a picturesque route, and what emerges for me and springs to mind is that sense of a painting. You know, we might make a painting and we might have a paint, but to a certain degree and to a certain point in our life, we do have a chance to change that drawing. We do have a chance to paint something beautiful, paint something new, and that's understanding our choices and our awareness in that. But bringing that back to myself, that when I returned from my time at West Ham, and it was a deeply difficult time for me, you know, coming back basically with me tail between my legs and that sense of a failure and should have done this, should have done better, but it really gave me a chance to embed myself back into football. When I met Stephen Kenny, and he just ignited that fire and that passion in me again to actually my love for football and get involved with football again. And then it's just started to snowball there. Then all of a sudden, then I got me easel out again. I got me canvas out again, and got myself some new paints and new brushes, and I started to paint myself another picture. And then it started to formulate a new picture of, right, this has been such a successful part in my career. We've had 2 amazing seasons at Derry City. Now there's other clubs from the UK coming and knocking, and one of them happened to be Cardiff City. So there was always that continual openness to learn and to grow, and I think if we can remain in that sense, that mindset, that opened growth mindset that I always had, and as a goalkeeper, that was one of my biggest strengths, was my willingness to learn all the time, learn new things from new people, whether it's, you know, you take a little portion or a little percentage of what they're actually teaching or what their wisdom or knowledge is, and adapting that into your style, into your technique. And you know, it served me well. It served me extremely well, and I definitely feel players coming back, it is a great pathway for players to come back, step into League of Ireland football, step into the men's game, into that realm and that world where you're playing every week. And really it's about understanding that journey of getting your confidence back, building yourself back up again, and strengthening yourself.
Yeah, and in terms of GAA as well, you kind of talked about bringing other aspects in that might help you learn. There was a period where I think there was a slight choice there. Maybe you might go down the GAA route, or you might actually continue with soccer. What did you pick up from the GAA side that kind of stayed with you?
Yeah, what I probably picked from my GAA roots, I suppose, would have been my fearlessness in terms of high balls and coming for crosses, and that sense of how would you call it, the rough and tumble, in a nice way to put it, like, you know, some like to call it the old dark arts and stuff, but you know, to have that sense of understanding of, especially when you're in the air and you're coming for balls and stuff, that when you're coming down, you're landing, you know, how to land properly, how to engage in a tackle, how to take the pressure of a shoulder, and then also ultimately it was handling skills, you know, hand-eye coordination, and there was so much in that game, you know, the pace, the power, and there was so many aspects of it that actually, you know, marry up with playing in goals and stuff.
You weren't tempted to give Kevin Welch a call when you came back and your days in England were coming to an end?
Well, Jesus, no. I was over in Ireland or over in London a few times watching All-Ireland finals and stuff in Croke Park, and that was another aspiration of mine was to play at Croke Park and stuff. And for years watching, over the last number of years, and even a couple of years ago, to watch the hurlers winning and bringing back the Lee McCarthy back to Galway over west of the Shannon again was absolutely fantastic. So. Yeah, you've just sown an old seed now. I might be giving him a call after this.
Pass on his number afterwards.
Yeah, if you can do, yeah.
I suppose the final point, so we're obviously in the Aviva Stadium. You'll be walking out here on Thursday during the Switzerland game, and it's a great honour. There were also difficult periods, I guess, in your career, in and around, I suppose, that period where you'd started the Euro 2016 qualifiers, had gone really, really well, and then Martin O'Neill makes a change. I suppose, did meditation and that kind of thing help in terms of dealing with some of those issues?
Yeah, 100%, and it was all about really adopting the right attitude. And for me, the whole journey stepping out was to get Ireland to the Euros, and if I was a part of that, absolutely fantastic. I might not have met it, but Ireland and we met it, the country met it, the team met it, and the show we actually put on for our fans and for our people of this nation and for this land was truly inspiring. And even though I didn't get to go, and it did hurt at that time, and it did hurt in that moment, but ultimately to see us getting to a quarterfinals of a major tournament was a phenomenal experience. And that's how I viewed it, and that's how I looked at it.
All right, David Forde, thanks a million for your time, and Jonathan Higgins, thanks for coming down as well.
Thank you. All right, welcome to the final part of this week's Team 33. Raf Diallo here with Colm Boohig, who was at the Ireland match last night, which was also the night after a very famous appearance from Roy Keane, who had plenty to say about lots of different people. So we'll talk about footballing feuds to finish off this week's show. But Colm, first, the Ireland match. How did you find it? Because I think we were talking to Enda Coll at the start of tonight's show, and his player ratings were, I suppose, a lot of people took them as being quite harsh.
Yeah.
But what did you make of the performance, I guess, and then also the atmosphere around the game?
Performance is very Irish. It was very like the first Mick Rain.
Yeah.
Like I was at the match with a friend of mine, and I was saying, this is like watching mid-90s. This is 25 years ago. There was in the first half, Enda gave Enda Stevens, his namesake, a very low rating. Wasn't it 3 or 4, something like that?
Something like that. It was fairly.
And Enda's going to clarify, but he had no options in the ball at all at left back, and I was on his side in the first half, and I was right in halfway, so he couldn't have had a much better view. And he was there was so many throw-ins, which is like so Sunday League of us, or he got the ball at left back, which is one of the centre-halves, either Duffy or Keogh, passing to Enda Stevens, which is fine. But then Stevens would take a touch, look up, and our 3 midfielders weren't showing for the ball. Howrahan, Whelan and Hendrick, they were facing away. Now, I don't know if that was either instructions from Mick McCarthy and Terry Connor, or if they just did not want to receive the ball. But you think Enda Stevens, not a week beforehand, had nutmegged Cesar Azpilicueta for Sheffield United in Sheffield United's first goal at Stamford Bridge, and you're thinking, these are good players, and that cross that went in was for Callum Robinson, who played right wing last night for us, and he was non-existent, completely non-existent. So you're thinking, half-time came, scoreless. The only chance of note in the first half was actually a very neat bit of footwork from Jeff Hendrick, who came into the game more and more as the first half went on. If he had any bit of space on a turn, he was half decent. He had a lovely bit of footwork to get around Swiss defence, played a through ball to McLean, and McLean was his initial shot. I think that could have gone places, was blocked down by, I think, Fabian Schär, and then McLean got kind of a scuffed shot away into Sommers' hands, the Swiss goalkeeper, and that was about it. Second half game, I actually thought Switzerland were nearly more impressive in the second half, even though people thought they were more dominant in the first.
Yeah.
And their goal was a thing of beauty,
Yeah, Schär's finish was.
Schär's finish, but Zakari and Mbolo, the Borussia Mönchengladbach teammates, just have the team in front of me here, but their 1-2 play and Granit Xhaka starting it. I had the perfect angle for that goal, and you could see it. It was like an AstroTurf goal. It was like when one five-a-side team is way better than the other five-a-side. And Schär's finish, he's kind of accustomed to do this.
International goals or something.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He scored an impressive number of goals for Newcastle last season. He scored 1 goal where he ran half the pitch.
Yeah.
So he has this incredible ability to play from deep, but his finish was superb. And if you ever wanted to see the disparity between the way Switzerland approach football and Ireland approach football, I think you know where I'm going with it, is the difference in the goals. The difference in the goals. I thought that was our chance when Whelan smashed the crossbar. I think everybody did around us. That was the feeling I got, even though not 10 seconds later McGoldrick headed in for his first Ireland goal. But you thought, like, that's the one thing we're going to take away. It's like, at least Whelan hit the bar and he was okay tonight.
What was the atmosphere like? Because obviously, where were you seated in relation to where the goals were scored?
It was right, like I was right in the centre circle. I was up a bit, about halfway up. And so I had a good view of both. I found that the Irish fans in my immediate vicinity, they wanted to be supportive, but they couldn't find anything to be supportive about. So there was a lot of grumbles. And basically the main gripe was that we couldn't string 3 or 4 passes together.
But could you gauge from the grumbling, is this being aimed at Mick McCarthy, the players?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think it
seems too early for it to be going towards Mick.
And I think Mick, there was not one negative comment, anything at all that I hear about Mick at all around it. And it wasn't even, no one had a go at anyone individual. It was kind of just, come on, a general sense of it definitely was nowhere near as toxic as it was a year ago. And especially towards the end of Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane, there was nothing like that. It wasn't like the Northern Ireland friendly. It was nothing like that. But it was definitely like, God, we're so limited. And when the Swiss scored, everyone was like, yeah, it's a good goal. Yeah. But then when we scored, it was one of the loudest reactions I've ever heard, which is kind of odd, because it didn't align with the atmosphere leading up to that goal. It wasn't a negative atmosphere, but it wasn't overly positive. It certainly wasn't extremely confident. Yeah. But when the goal went in, there was a real feel-good factor. That lasted a good minute and a half after the goal, and McGoldrick got taken off. Massive ovation. And people are just like, it's just so easy to please fans sometimes, and just a simple goal. And if he hadn't scored that goal, people are like, yeah, he was okay. And that's the difference. You know, it's the most terrible old cliche of goals win games, but that's gone and taking McGoldrick's status from here to here. And the
2 last-minute goals, obviously, in 2 games as well, kind of, I suppose, changes the perception when we haven't actually played well in either game, really.
Not really, we never got going. And I really felt sorry for Enda Stevens and picking him out in particular, because they weren't giving him an option. He was only ever going to play badly as a result. I thought, Seamus Coleman, for the record, I thought he actually, dare I say, I thought he was trying too hard, like, because he's so aware he's the Irish captain. He's probably aware that he's the best player. He is the best player. We all know that. But I thought he was trying too much, and he was like off the ball. I was watching him. He was so rattled. Like, he was just so angry. He was giving Duffy an earful off the ball with the cameras were nowhere near it. And obviously the Swiss players, then he was having goals at Shearer, and then Xhaka, the 2 captains, having a go off each other. He was very, very passionate, very riled up. Coleman, I'd love to see if he's like that week in, week out, if you're at Goodison Park watching him. You know, I
think there's always an element of it with
definitely an element, but this is different.
But this probably boiled over, and he's not the only person who's boiled over this week. Although this is, and that's a great segue.
I mean, that was award-winning stuff.
Yeah. Well, we have,
as you know.
Yeah. Well, we have our bit of news, but you can go to Twitter to find that. We haven't won anything; it's a nomination. But yes, referring to Roy Keane and what he had to say about a various number of people, including John Walters, but also at the start of the week on Tuesday. So I was off doing Ireland press conferences. I was at, I think, it wasn't Mick McCarthy's one. It was the day later. Actually, it was McGoldrick, I think. And,
you were. Yeah.
And who was sat beside him? It wasn't McLean. But anyway, there were a few going on that day. But when I was coming back, I just looked at my phone and looked at Twitter, and I just saw Michael Owen and Alan Shearer trending. And you kind of worry when you see names trending now, because sometimes it just means they've been badly hurt, killed, or something like that.
2016.
So but then actually now, once I kind of clicked on to whatever, either name, just saw that a feud was boiling over, and I don't think I realised the extent of the hatred they have for each other.
Not at all. I was just, before I came in here, I was looking at it, and Michael Owen went on BBC to explain it.
Right.
So much better when you see their actual body language and facial expression and tone of voice when he explained. So Owen was saying, before this week, they're great friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're great friends, but they have a different point of view now, and kind of left it thinking, I don't know if we'll ever really be friends afterwards. But I'm sure everyone's seen it, but it boils down to Shearer having a go at Owen's record at Newcastle, and Owen returning the favour by saying, questioning Shearer's loyalty and mentioning Liverpool in the conversation, which I don't know about you, I wasn't aware of that.
No, I didn't know that.
Absolutely no. So that's not public knowledge, right?
assuming it's true, but
assuming it's true.
Yeah, assuming it's true. No, no one's ever heard that. No, everyone assumed once Shearer went to Newcastle, that was kind of it, and there was no flirtation or anything with any other clubs. So this was something somewhat surprising. It'd be like Totti at the time, maybe flirting with Real Madrid or something.
I couldn't even picture him in the shirt or anything like that. And it's just Liverpool, or it's just Michael Owen's kind of bitterness and obsession with Liverpool and how he just never got that transfer back from Real Madrid.
Yeah.
But he's really sticking the boot in about I did not want to play for Newcastle, and then really emphasised no, I didn't want to play for them at all. I had no interest in playing for Newcastle. And he was and what did he say? I don't owe Newcastle fans anything. And there might have been another word put in there too.
Yeah.
To really emphasise the fact that kind of did ye a favour here. I'm coming from Ballon d'Or winner at Liverpool, Real Madrid striker, to play alongside Raúl and Ronaldo. I think Marientos was there the season he was there. Newcastle record, and he was the record signing up until relatively recently. I think 16.5 million back in 2005. So he was very sure of himself, and he still is to this day. I suppose I'm not surprised that there's an ego clash with Owen and Shearer. Didn't think it was that bitter. And I also find with these public Twitter spats, I know it's the heat of the moment and they're passionate and they're defensive of their own records and their reputation, but it's what are they getting out of this, doing this so publicly? Do they want everybody to see it? Are they
Shearer clearly wanted everybody to see his initial salvo, and then obviously Owen could have probably dealt with it privately, but then again he's been called out publicly, so he kind of has to.
So what do you do?
Keep it in that domain, probably.
Because then, so Shearer is saying, we wished you had retired too, Michael, for 150 grand, and it was quote tweeting the video that Owen did for BT Sport, wasn't it, talking about his horrendous injury record in the last half a dozen years of his career, and then Owen responding in kind saying, you're not as loyal as people think. People assume you are, have the perception of you that you could have gone to Liverpool. And you're right. When Shearer went for the first punch, do you punch back or do you not? It's kind of lose-lose for Owen in that sense, because he either has no self-respect or he's just fanning the flames for Twitter sphere, and they don't need to do either. But look, it's good for Michael Owen, it's good for sales.
It's good, great for sales of his book, because at least it points people to the fact that exists. So in a way, Shearer has kind of done him a favour in certain ways. Obviously, there was the roadshow, the Off the Ball roadshow, with our colleagues Joe and Nathan were chatting to Roy Keane and Gary Neville, who's previously been on our show before as well. So this was the Cadbury roadshow. He had a lot of things to say about Walters. I did hear a line where he had a go at Kenny Cunningham. He doesn't want to kind of patch things up with Alex Ferguson. There's a whole line of people. He had a dig at Jason McAteer without naming him as well. I'm not really surprised kind of when I've heard any of this stuff, because we all know who Roy Keane is. The only thing is, it's football. Well, feuds in football, just they are a thing, and they've always been there. When you think about that Man United dressing room who was in, I think even Neville touched on it. They weren't all mates or anything. They went out from time to time, but I guess there was that perception between not so much. It was more kind of Cole Sheringham. There was that kind of hatred and things, but that you could still almost work together despite maybe having some type of mutual enmity.
Yeah, there was the traditional example is Kevin Keegan and John Tashak in the 70s. Liverpool really did not see eye to eye at all, and they were brilliant as a partnership for Liverpool, briefly, but brilliant all the same. Same with, as you say, Teddy Sheringham and Andy Cole in the 90s and into the early 90s. It all stems from Andy Cole making his debut for England in 1995.
I've seen the footage of him coming across and then Sheringham not acknowledging him. Obviously, they weren't club teammates at that time.
They weren't, so that was 95. So Cole had not long signed for United from Newcastle. Sheringham was still with Spurs, about 2 years away from signing as Cantona's replacement for United. But Cole's debut was a packed Wembley. They played Uruguay. It was that summer tournament before Euro 96, the year before. That was when Ronaldo played for Brazil against England in the same tournament, I believe, and absolutely ripped apart.
Tournoi, is it?
Well, Tournoi was 2 years later. I can't remember the name of it, but it was, I don't know if it was a list of summer friendlies or if it was its own kind of make-believe tournament. But I remember Ronaldo skinning Stuart Pearce, a very good left-back, in that tournament. But yeah, back to Sheringham and Cole, the Uruguay thing, like you were saying, you saw that clip, yeah. Did you think it was particularly icy as so far as the story goes?
I don't know for sure.
It was grand.
It's hard to
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, you do see it happen, and I often, because of the Cole Sheringham thing, I do look closely at when one player is coming off. Now this is pre the new FIFA rule, obviously, where you have to go off on the nearer side. But you look closely at how a player interacts with the player that's, when they're kind of replacing each other. And some of them are much warmer, some of them are less so, but you wonder, some of them just maybe thinking in their heads, they're just thinking about the game, and they, the fact that they're not acknowledging their teammate warmly, it's not an indictment of the teammate,
really?
It's more just the fact that their mind is completely somewhere else.
No, not really. Like, if you're allowed to be annoyed, you could be at your own performance, could be at your team's performance, could be for being substituted in the first place. So that's what I would have looked into that. But Andy Coll was, like, subsequently said, all I wanted was a handshake because I was really nervous making my England debut. It's all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
And Sheringham ignored him. And I think his quote retrospectively is, I knew from then Sheringham wasn't for me. And like, they shared, they were in the same squad, that pretty much Man United's most successful squad ever on paper in terms of what happened 4 years after that incident. So it's remarkable that they can do that, but I suppose that happens in every workplace,
We're not speaking about here.
No. But I'm sure, as I was saying, I'm sure it does. I'm not aware of it, but I'm sure it does.
In all workplaces except the
ball
teams,
is,
off the ball or
safe haven.
Yeah, but that sums us up for tonight's show. So up next is Splonk. Colm, thanks for coming in. We'll be back next week. Don't know what our interview is definitely going to be or not. We're chasing a former Blackburn striker, but we'll see if that actually comes off. We won't say the name yet until it's confirmed one way or another. But thanks for listening in, and take it away, Johan.